1. Introduction. RAWSEP view. The United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only. For home building and furniture building. For just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry, and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable. Wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree, but it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lungs, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM 2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom, the eco-design wood stove, and international convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. RAWSEP view. Purple air. PM 2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM 2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM 2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary. Episode 57 DEP February 26, 2025. Tesla sales down in Europe. This drop in sales should happen in the US. In episode 57 DEP 1 Substack opinions on government worker firings. 2 United States budget bill passes the House. 3 in Europe Tesla sales drop. Main content. 1A United States Substack Letters from an American Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates of 501c3 nonprofit organization. Heather Cox Richardson February 25, 2025 at a press conference. House Democrats called out what Representative Greg Casar, Democrat of Texas, called this billionaire budget resolution. I know that I and my colleagues here today are ready to go to the mat and fight all the way until we stop this budget and finally demand that instead of a tax break for greedy billionaires that we actually tax those greedy billionaires and expand the programs that working people deserve. Casar said it took pressure from Trump to get the House resolution across the line this evening. It ultimately passed by a vote of 217 to 215, with only one Republican representative, Thomas Massie, Republican of Kentucky, voting with all the Democrats against it. Earlier this year, Republicans killed a bipartisan push to enable representatives to vote remotely while on maternity leave, so Representative Brittany Pettersen, Democrat of Colorado, flew across the country with her 1-month-old son to vote no on this disastrous budget proposal. 1B Idaho Substack to the Women of America. RAWSEP view. RAWSEP also posts on Substack, so a variety of Substack entries are emailed to the editor of RAWSEP Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. LYNZY February 24, 2025. I was sent a video yesterday of a brave woman by the name of Dr. Teresa Borenpole. This video has been widely circulating over the weekend, and I was sickened but not surprised by what I saw. Dr. Teresa Borenpole was exercising her First Amendment rights at a town hall where Ed B was speaking when an off-duty sheriff and 2 unmarked men dressed in black forcibly removed her and zip-tied her wrists together and then charged her with battery. I am putting the video below because I strongly believe that this needs to be shared far and wide. We cannot let something like this happen with no response. Kurdi. Aileen, Idaho is a city that has a long history with hate groups and extremism. The bravery shown by Dr. Teresa Borenpole in making this statement cannot be overstated. Much has been said about how the audience reacted, particularly about the silence of the men present. While disappointing, their lack of response is not entirely unexpected given the history of this city. What surprised me was that the women in attendance did not collectively demand accountability, insisting these men disclose their occupations and clarify their involvement in forcibly removing a woman. Ed B states over the microphone, while this was happening, we have got to be a little aggressive with some of these folks right here. Your voice is meaningless right now. I can talk over all of you. Know it. Our voices are not meaningless. We cannot let this stand. We are the women of America. 1C United States Substack missives from a middle-aged man. RAWSEP view. Maybe the point of view of RAWSEP is too idealistic and not realistic about the people who make up MAGA. Support for Trump here is a view from a non-MAGA man about the men of MAGA as he observes them, knowing the casual attitude of scorn for women even in 2025 reminds us, if we need reminding, that women as a block are on the Trump chopping block along with the unfairly fired block of all government workers who are just doing their job the best way they can. Undemocratic right. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates of 501c3 nonprofit organization, February 22nd, 2025. Frederick, hey, what is up, everybody? So I had a conversation with a woman friend of mine who works for the VA. Woman veterans and women that serve together are talking to each other about the MAG. Some of these women were saying, oh no, you know, all this is a mistake. They just went too far. They are trying to do right. They are just trying to cut the fluff and cut the fat. But you know they are going to make it right. They are going to hire everybody back. You got to trust in Trump. Yeah. Sis, I am here to tell you that is not happening. You know how I know? Because the MAGs tell me they have told me in the past when I have worked with them every time they were nice to your face and you walked away and they kind of kneed me in the ribs with the elbow and commented on your ass. Yep, you are not part of their club. You never were there. Lying to you about that. Because if they can go far enough, what they will do, they will send you back home. They do not want you working. They want people like me working, white men who are Christian, you know, cause see. In the Christianity they got today among that group, you do not question things. So you are not going to question the billionaire class when they tell you to work for substandard wages. When they do all this other stuff, they do not want people questioning. But I got all the rest of the qualifications. They do not want you around, sis. They are serious about it. They are not going to make it right. See, the problem is you thought you would get a pass because you were with them, that they are going to look at you differently. Oh, they are going to do it to the rest of them, but not you. Well, I am here to tell you they are going to do it to you, and that is why you need to come stand over on our side. Think about it. Keep the faith and defend democracy. 2A United States. The House wants to pass the Trump agenda in one big bill. Here is what is in it. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates of 501c3 nonprofit organization, the New York Times, February 25th, 2025. Last week, Trump lauded a House budget blueprint that would enable Congress to pass much of his legislative agenda in what he called one big, beautiful bill. That budget, which passed the House on Tuesday and will head to the Senate for approval, lays out targets for legislation that would extend tax cuts and increase the federal deficit. It would also almost certainly make major cuts to programs that serve the poor. Spending cuts $2 trillion tax cuts and spending increases $4.8 trillion deficit increase $2.8 trillion spending cuts $2 trillion tax cuts and spending increases $4.8 trillion deficit increase $2.8 trillion. Each square represents $250 billion over 10 years. House Speaker Mike Johnson can afford only one defection from his caucus, making building the budget tricky. Some Republicans want to cut taxes, others want to reduce the federal deficit. Still others are queasy about big cuts to social welfare programs. Already several Republican lawmakers have signed a letter raising concerns about cuts to Medicaid and the SNAP food benefit program, cuts that are probably mathematically necessary to make the budget work. The committee also has jurisdiction over some healthcare programs, including Medicare and the Affordable Care Act. Spending cuts to the programs might help the committee cut taxes more while still staying under the limit set by the budget deficits and debt. Because the tax cuts and spending increases significantly outweigh the spending cuts in the budget, it would directly add $2.8 trillion to deficits over the next 10 years. It could ultimately add an estimated $3.4 trillion to the national debt because of the cost associated with increased borrowing. Tables released with the House bill assume aggressive economic growth that would help cover the bulk of this increase, but budget experts say the assumptions are unrealistic. Deficit increase $2.8 trillion deficit increase $2.8 trillion. Each square represents $250 billion in deficits over 10 years. Also included in the bill, a $4 trillion increase to the debt limit. The cap on the amount the government is authorized to borrow. The U.S. hit its current limit in January, and the Treasury has been employing accounting maneuvers called extraordinary measures to continue paying United States bills. To be United States, what can House Republicans cut instead of Medicaid? Not much. The math of the GOP goals makes the move almost unavoidable. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates of 501c3 nonprofit organization, the New York Times, February 25th, 2025. The House passed a budget resolution Tuesday night after the Speaker, Mike Johnson, persuaded several Republican lawmakers, including those who have expressed reservations about possible Medicaid cuts, to support the bill. In theory, the budget, which kicks off the process of passing an extension of tax cuts enacted in 2017 and up to $2 trillion in spending cuts meant to partly offset them, could become law without significant cuts to Medicaid. But it will not be easy. Spending overseen by the House Committee on Energy and Commerce, $2.5 trillion Medicaid, Medicare, other health, non-health cuts required $880 billion. Spending overseen by the House Committee on Energy and Commerce, $2.5 trillion Medicaid, Medicare, other health, non-health cuts required $880 billion. Each square represents $250 billion in 10-year gross mandatory spending by the New York Times. That process has a few more steps. For one, the Senate has to adopt this budget resolution. Then both houses of Congress will also need to write and pass legislation that follows its instructions. The budget resolution itself is silent on whether Congress cuts Medicaid, which provides health coverage to 72 million poor and disabled Americans, but it instructs the House Energy and Commerce Committee, which has jurisdiction over the program, to cut spending by $880 billion over the next decade. If the committee cannot save at least that much, the entire effort could be imperiled because of the special process Congress is using to avoid a Senate filibuster. It is not so simple as finding the cuts elsewhere. The special process known as budget reconciliation means Republicans will have to find all $880 billion from within jurisdiction of the committee. That leaves them with fewer options than one might think. Conclusion: healthcare is where the dollars are. The committee just does not have enough other places to find the money. If the budget resolution is going to become public policy, it will require legislation that cuts health programs. Almost $1 trillion is a lot of money, even in federal budget terms, and healthcare is where the money is. If the committee cannot find $880 billion, the entire reconciliation process, including the extension of tax cuts, will collapse. The instructions they have given necessitate huge cuts to healthcare, full stop, said a senior director of federal budget policy at the Center for American Progress and a former Senate and White House budget official. There is a mathematical requirement Free Europe, where Tesla sales are down. I felt nothing but disgust. Tesla owners vent their anger at Elon Musk. The links of the tycoon with Donald Trump and the German far-right AfD have slammed the brakes on sales and put Tesla car owners in a spin. Tesla sales almost have in Europe over the Musk ties to Trump. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission. Particulates, a 501c3 nonprofit organization, The Guardian, February 25, 2025. Of late, the sheen of owning a Tesla has begun to wear off. For years, the brand has been synonymous with Elon Musk and his stance against the climate crisis. Recently, Shweta watched aghast as the Tesla CEO poured hundreds of millions into backing Donald Trump as he made promises to ramp up domestic oil and gas production. The final straw came when Musk made back-to-back fascist-style salutes during the Trump inauguration in January. I felt nothing but utter disgust, and I no longer enjoyed sitting in my Tesla. On Tuesday, data from the European Automobile Manufacturers Association showed sales of new Tesla cars almost halved in Europe last month. The figures left analysts scrambling to assess how big a factor customers turning their backs on the brand because of the Musk foray into far-right politics. Maybe the Texas-based carmaker sold 9,945 vehicles in Europe in January, down 45% from the January 2024 total of 18,161. The association said a pedestrian approaches a bus stop advert that reads goes from 0 to 1939 in 3 seconds. Tesla, the swastika car. Now, there are signs existing Tesla owners who have become disgruntled with the Musk views are making their anger heard. For a man in Germany, the turning point came as he was heckled by a stranger at a petrol station who pointed to his Tesla and called him a Trump supporter. Of course, as a Tesla driver, you were always the fool, the Green Party voter, the world savior, the CO2 guy, the man told a German media outlet. But now you are in a category that is no longer funny. What he came up with was a line of anti-Elon stickers for Tesla cars as Musk waded more deeply into German politics, hosting the far-right AfD co-leader Alice Weidel in an interview on X and turning up at an AfD rally where he disparaged multiculturalism and lambasted the German focus on past guilt. Demand for anti-Musk stickers for Tesla cars soared. Demand has now climbed to as much as 2,000 stickers a day, with orders pouring in from across the German-speaking world. But as far as Australia and South Korea, all of it was done without any advertising. The German man said Musk does that for us. Others have called for the actions to go further. In Poland, where the Nazi German occupation led to the deaths of 6 million Poles, including 3 million Jews, the German tourism minister called on citizens to boycott Tesla after the Musk surprise appearance at the AfD rally. All I can say is that probably no normal Pole should buy a Tesla anymore, a Polish man recently told a Polish PM radio broadcaster. A serious and strong response is necessary, including a consumer boycott. In August, the German drugstore chain RAWSEP said it would no longer buy Tesla cars for its corporate fleet, citing the Musk support for Trump, while the German energy company Lichtblick said on social media that it would be pulling the plug on the Tesla vehicles in its fleet, citing the Musk backing of a right-wing populist and extremist party. The message was echoed recently by UK-based campaign group led by donkeys after they projected images of the Musk salute onto the facade of the Tesla Gigafactory near Berlin. The richest man in the world, Elon Musk, is promoting the far right in Europe, the campaign group wrote on social media after their collaboration with the German Center for Political Beauty. Do not buy a Tesla. In London, activists put up a parody Tesla, the swastika car bus stop advert with the tagline goes from 0 to 1939 in 3 seconds, referencing the start of the Second World War, and stickers with similar wording have been slapped on Tesla cars. In Tottenham, North London, a member of the activist group People vs. Elon took a cardboard cutout of the Musk Nazi salute into a Tesla dealership. In Sweden, the EV maker Polestar has sought to capitalize on the discontent. We get a lot of people writing that they do not like all this, the Polestar CEO said. He had directed sales staff to target disgruntled Tesla owners after a Dutch poll suggested 31% of respondents who own Teslas were considering selling them or had already done so. It remains to be seen what the impact will be on the Tesla company. A Germany-based automotive analyst said 2025 will be one of the biggest tests for Tesla. Consumers tend to be like goldfish, they tend to forget things very quickly, but Germany is potentially slightly different because of its history. The shift to him backing the AfD was potentially far more damaging in Germany than his move to back Trump. Last year, Tesla saw sales in Germany plunge 41%, outpacing the overall 27% decline in EVs across the country as rivals rolled out their own electric vehicles and governments rolled back subsidies. Figures for early 2025 show that Tesla sales fell sharply across several European markets. Registrations were down 63% on a year earlier, in France 59%, in Germany 44%, in Sweden 38%, in Norway and 12% in the UK. While buyers could be reacting to the Musk comments, other factors may also be at play as consumers await the Tesla release of the updated Y model.
One introduction. RAWSEP view the United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only for home building and furniture building. For just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions. Yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry, and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable, wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree. But it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen, and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut down and burn tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lungs, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom. The Eco-Design Wood Stove and International Convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. RAWSEP view purple air PM2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary.